everybody, Tyrone the God 3 here, and I'm here with the guest, the Insane Game Freak.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, and we have a bit of something different to talk to you guys about. I know normally when we get together, we're either talking about Pokemon or some other form of anime, usually on his channel or my channel. But we're not here to talk about that today. This actually goes into a segment that the Insane Game Freak's been doing for quite a while called Societal Discussions. And I thought of an idea that I thought would be very good a topic for us to discuss. Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the past week, Childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover, has been sort of all over the place, not just on Saturday Night Live, but he's also been on, he's playing This Is America, which is the music video that came on, and he's also in Solo. But regardless of all of that, This Is America is a music video that opened up a lot of African Americans' eyes, just a lot of people's eyes actually, to the world of African American culture. And obviously, Childish Gambino is a very pro-black, pro-African American artist. Now, this is where we get our controversy from. Obviously, Childish Gambino's partner is a Caucasian woman. She's white. And a lot of people have been saying, oh, can you be 100% pro-black or pro-African American if you're dating someone who's outside of your race, who's white? And which the response, and this is where we get into our discussion, the response was that Childish Gambino is known to a lot of African Americans as a nerdy African American. He's outside of the norm, he's into this nerdy like culture. He's a weird ass culture. And because of that, during childhood and growing up, he was ostracized by, several other African Americans of his peers, outcasted, and thus that people have made the theory that that's why he decided to date a white woman. He's never outright stated that that's the reason. He obviously is dating the woman because he likes the woman. But this leads to the topic that I wanted to talk with the Insane Game Freak on. What exactly is your first of all, let's start off with what is your opinion about this theory that we're being pushed away from African American women at an early age because of our unquote black nerdy behavior?
Well, it's weird because it's based in the society you grew up with.
Right.
Most people, like black kids, grew up around other black kids, and unfortunately, in America, there's a good chunk, if not the majority, of a lot of black kids who grew up around the stereotypical black women. Like, people like to get mad at stereotypes, but they don't realize almost every stereotype is based in some level of truth. And as far as we getting pushed away, it's more of where the non-nerdy black kids are like the non-stereotypical black kid. Like, we're the kids who were playing Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Where everyone else was into basketball, football, doing every type of sport, talking and flirting with girls. And if you were trying to talk to a black girl, which is probably what you were surrounded by the most, because as African Americans, we tend to be surrounded by other people of the same color and race. Most stereotypical African American women weren't necessarily into that shit. They were into the guys that were like overly masculine. They were into sports. They were super sociable, and they had their own little grind, whether it was like being a rapper or being good at a sport, or even, just a guy who carries himself differently. Like a nerdy person, a nerdy black dude is just a nerd. There is no specifics other than I'm a nerd who also happens to be black.
The fact that you pointed that out, I love that, because the fact that you have to separate black nerd and nerd is already a problem within itself. I just want to and I'll just let you get back on that. I'm sorry. I just want to I just want to break it down a little bit for everyone who's watching. When usually it's called the black nerd, and that was a term made by society, primarily African Americans, in which they take on the persona that being nerdy is nothing but a white thing. Oh, you can only be a geek, you can only be a nerd if you're, this kid named Billy with glasses and a pocket protector on, and and he's like, I gotta go to science class, like one of those type of people. When in fact, like I said, the culture, the nerd culture has spanned far beyond that. This isn't the 60s, this isn't the 50s. The nerd culture has expanded to, you know, watching anime, watching My Hero Academia, Dragon Ball Z, Sword Art Online, Code Geass, you have it. It's just watching it at an age where most people of our culture would consider it what? Cartoons. Or it's for children, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's see, people like to pretend like this whole this racism thing is like a one-way street. It's not.
Right.
I'm and this is getting a little bit deeper into that conversation. I'm just going to go ahead and make my point clear. I don't think it would have made a difference who was in power. I think racism would have still happened regardless of who was in power. It just so happened that it happened to be white Europeans who were in power at the time and decided to grab from Africa. But if you role reverse, it's not like I think black people would have done it any differently. I think the issue of racism and superiority complex comes from human egotism. I don't think that's a specific to one race, and that's exactly what black people did. Other black people shitted on other black people who shared traits with white people, even though it wasn't a white trait to begin with. It was viewed as a white trait because the stereotypical black person, which means the majority of black people, didn't do it. That's how it became its own little. That's how subgenres were created. If you weren't a part of the majority, then you were the weird minority. So, for black people, since most of us were in, you know, fucking ghettos and surviving by the skin of our teeth, and most of us were in uneducated areas where people were shooting and all that other shit. And granted, that's just a stereotype. But that is a majority of the situation for black people who grew up in poverty due to our shit hand dealt as far as the American social system is concerned. The stereotypical black person was that ignorant, you know, talking, you know, good at sports kind of dude. Like the nerdy kid who happened to be black was the minority within a minority, which is why it was singled out as you're a black nerd. Right. Because that was something that was more contextualized. We only see nerds in white people, even though nerd has never been a racially charged term. It became that, and it's kind of like when people, I don't know if you've heard this before, Tyler, but I've gotten the comment where it's like, oh, well, you talk white, and it's like
every time in basically every school I've ever been into up until college. College was where it kind of stopped, but high school was big with that, especially with the way I talk.
Yeah, so it's that mentality of it's not something common to the black community, so it's associated with a different race that it is common with. But unfortunately, it's just another form of segregation.
Right. I was raised by my mother and my grandmother, and they would not have me talk any other way other than someone with sense. I wasn't gonna use slurs. I wasn't gonna use. I'll use slang, but I'll only use it when I'm with my peers, and usually then it's very minimized. So there's never a point where I'm just out here like, what up, cuz, what it is? Like, I'm not doing any of that. Not because I want to sound like I'm white. That's got nothing to do with it. I want to sound like I'm dignified. I want to sound like a person that's presenting himself like a person. So it's just, and that's the thing though, that's exactly what this topic is talking about, is the reason that we're shunned so much is because it's not even, I think sometimes, and I know this is going to sound weird, but I think sometimes racism goes far past just racism, but just division of culture, division of people. People will always find a way to divide each other.
It's okay, it's hard. It's hard to kind of go into it, but the best way I can kind of relay it is people. It's like I was saying before, how I don't think this. It's like how people, for some reason, for the longest time, if you ever talk, at least around where I was around, people view racism as like a one-way street. That racism only existed with white people being against black people, and if you were a black person who was like racist against a white person, that wasn't called racism. That was called reverse racism. It's like this it's this false perception that how do I put it? It's this false idea that racism and this hatred and all this shit going on in the news and media is only going on from the perspective of all black people are the only one that's getting ostracized, and we're the ones, even though ironically enough black people do it to their own all the fucking time. It's kind of like what you were bringing up before about how I'm darker than you, and what was it, a few years ago you had that whole team light skin and team dark skin thing going on. It's people will segregate no matter what the situation. That's why I don't fucking believe in this thought process that it's in that, and because black people are also on this whole mindset that they want to keep their culture, which I understand the idea of that. It's just that it sometimes gets taken to an extreme that fucking over exaggerates itself. So when it comes to the nerdy shit, the reason why, the argument to make that maybe Donald Glover is dating a white woman because of his past experience with black women, that's a perfectly viable statement. Because if you grew up in an area where you were mainly surrounded by black women, and if they were stereotypical black women, or if that was the majority of black men were the stereotypical kind that didn't give a fuck about any of the nerdy shit you were into, then it was rough as fuck for you to deal with, to find a black woman that you were into. It wasn't like he just didn't. And the reason, and some people go, but why date a white woman? Well, it's not necessarily because she's white. It's just the fact that she happened to be into the same shit and happened to share viewpoints that he did, that his peers didn't. It could have been an Indian woman. It could have been a black woman. It's just who the fuck he ran across first, who caught his fancy. People gotta understand, it's not as simple, I'm actively looking for a white woman. Now granted, there are dudes who do that. The point is that I'm looking for an individual that fits me as a person. If I happen to run across a white girl who does that first, or does that the best compared to other women I've dated, the white is kind of a secondary thing. Right. I'm more concerned with that she's the girl that fits me as a person. But people want to take it to a race level because we can't have a conversation
without taking it to a race level.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, I've been talking too much.
No, it's fine. I completely agree with everything you're saying, because, like, it's just when I think the only reason this ever became an issue, because nobody even talked about the fact that Donald Glover has been with a white woman up until now. Oh, well, up to when? Oh, when his video "This Is America" started blowing up, when he started getting on SNL, when he started being in the movie Solo. Now that Donald Glover has become far bigger than he was pretty big. The dude does literally three things. He acts, he does comedy, and he does music. Well, he sort of quit the comedy thing, but he still acts and does music. So the fact that he's gotten so big now, suddenly it's a problem that he's with a white woman. Suddenly it's a problem that he's with someone that's not in the same race. And apparently that makes him less of a person because of it. He's less pro-black because he's dating white, which, again, that falls into what you said. That got nothing to do with what makes you happy.
Well, and see, the problem is, specifically with him, is the fact that, though I didn't know much of him, I didn't even know Childish Gambino and Donald Glover were the same person for the longest time.
Have you ever noticed that Donald Glover and Childish Gambino have never been in the same room?
You're fucking terrible. But the way I was introduced to him was through Community. That was the show I knew him from. And he doesn't play a typical, a stereotypical black dude. He plays like this weird, just a weird socially awkward person, which ironically enough, I bet is far closer to his legit personality than anything. I think the reason why people are blowing his girlfriend out of proportion is because he's a stereotypical nerdy dude who's been, through his music specifically, his Childish Gambino persona, which is the most prevalent it's been, is with this heavy-handed, pro-black social commentary shit. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, music is music, art is art. You say what you want to say. Do I think the song has gotten a little overblown? Personally, yeah, because to me, it's another example, one of those things where the fucking song isn't that great on its own, or isn't nowhere near as heavy-handed. It's what they did with the video. But still, you give props to the video. But because it's the image of this guy who's not known to be nerdy, I mean, not known to be like stereotypically black, being very stereotypically black in his style of music, even though he's still saying real shit. And it's one of those, well, that he just seems like a walking contradiction. Like to some people who aren't used to seeing that, a person who's like intellectual and nerdy also be very pro-black or very or very woke, as much as I hate that fucking term.
Yeah. Oh God.
and then on top of that, to have a white girlfriend on top of all that, it's like it's like a weird, and a lot of people, in some people's minds, is a weird contradiction on contradiction on contradiction. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it is that people are multifaceted. It doesn't fucking matter if I happen to date a white woman. I can still rep my country or rep my people anyway, because if I'm with her, that probably means she supports what I'm doing. It ain't got shit to do with the simple idea that because I'm nerdy, or I'm like what people would view as a stereotypical white black person, which is a thing that shouldn't exist, but that's another thing. And the funny thing is about that statement, I love how it's one of the reasons why I haven't really talked the race shit as much, because my opinions are not, look at all these white Americans killing these Negroes. Because as much as people say how white America has segregated black people from it, like they're actively trying to kill us, which I can agree to certain aspects of that, black people are separating themselves just as much, and even separating other black people from themselves that they don't deem black enough or culturally black enough. Which is why we have comments like, "You talk white, a black nerd," or even these interracial couples. It's the same shit. That's the problem. It's like I said. That's why I don't think of racism as a white specific thing.
But
go ahead.
But what I was trying to get to, basically, just to reiterate on what I'm saying, is that nobody makes any comments on black nerdy women. Obviously, it goes both ways. Believe it or not, women can be. That falls into another thing too. It's like, women can be nerdy too, guys. And that's not just a black thing. That's just been going on since the dawn of time. The people are always acting different when a woman states that she's a gamer. So I guess that goes triple for black women, because 1, they're black, 2, they're nerdy, 3, they're women. Like, that's a triple threat minority going on there. And I guess that's why they're never mentioned at all. Because it's like, okay, if Donald Glover, let's put him back in this situation again. If Donald Glover truly was ostracized by black women because he was a nerd, what about other black nerdy women? Other women existed, I'm sure, in his lifetime that were black and they were nerds as well. So how do you explain them?
Well, I mean, it's hard, because the reality of it is that all this shit is just people trying to use. I don't understand how we can make these comments about how humans are super complicated.
Because it's a lot easier to label and put everything on bare bones rather than discover that humans have layers of complexity.
Yeah, but like, this is basic shit. Like, how dare you be pro-black and have a white girlfriend? 1, 2, who the fuck? Me being pro-black has nothing to do with my girlfriend. I could be single. I thought you're pro-black. Why don't you have a black girlfriend? What if I was fucking celibate?
How dare you take nothing? Nothing isn't black.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where it's like what the fuck? Like, it's almost like you're trying to argue my points with a completely different argument. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh is better than Pokemon. Well, Digimon has a better story. Well, we weren't even talking about Digimon. How the hell did that get stuck into the conversation?
Like, okay, my favorite anime, unfortunately, my favorite anime is Dragon Ball Z. But I'll admit that Dragon Ball Z had a worse story than Death Note. Death Note's my second favorite. Does that mean that I'm against? Does that mean I'm against Death Note? No, it just means I know it has a better story. I just like Dragon Ball Z. Like, I'm more complex than what you think.
Well, I guess actually this would go into a point with Donald Glover that would make the more sense. Just because I'm pro-black doesn't mean I'm anti-white.
Exactly.
And I think that's the problem people are making when they start saying shit about his girlfriend. It's like, just because I'm pro my race doesn't mean I'm anti any other race. That's the misunderstanding that's going on here. And I think that to me is the core of it. That people, for some reason, it's like if this is true, it's like an if then statement. Mm-hmm. If this is true, this also has to be true. No, that shit isn't tied together. There is no fucking switch that cuts on as soon as I say I'm pro-black. That it flips the switch, and it also means I'm anti-white.
You know what that is? You know what that is? That's like saying I like pepperoni pizza. Am I only gonna eat pepperoni pizza for the rest of my goddamn life? You bet your ass I'm not. Because that would be stupid, and I would be fat.
Hey, listen. Fat is a thing that we have in America. We've normalized that. We can't have fat shaming on this channel.
All right. Well, then my sodium levels would be really high.
Okay, fine. I feel like you were reaching, but it's fine. We'll allow it. Yeah, to me, that's just the core of the thing. People gotta understand there are different levels to this shit. There are some black kids who weren't into traditional black shit, into stereotypical black shit, which people need to stop feeding into those stereotypes in general. They won't, because they're stereotypes and they're based on truths. But the point I'm making is that there are some black kids who grew up and refuse to date people within their race because of the treatment they suffered. Just like there are black kids who don't go out of their way to shit talk white people because they were never treated bad by white people or other races in their childhood. People keep acting like, it always comes back to this, like, people keep acting like in America every black person suffered some sort of injustice to white people. There are a bunch of black kids who don't have no aggression. I think, who was it? It was Lil Wayne a while ago. He was like, I don't think there's a thing such as racism. He said that shit. I don't know why he said that shit, because he didn't grow up in an environment. Ironically enough, it's weird coming from him.
Right.
But ironically enough, he was like, I didn't grow up in an environment where I was afraid of white people, which is kind of like part of my stance. It's like, why am I more critical of black people than white people? Because I grew up around black people. I saw the absolute best. I saw more of the worst than I ever should have of my own race. So I recognize, and the reality is that I wasn't fearing being shot by a white person on the daily. I was fearing being shot by other black people in the same neighborhood as me for really dumb shit, because I had a brand new TV or I had these new shoes that came out. That's the dark reality of some people's lives. People it's not a simple cut and dry situation where just because I like video games doesn't mean I can't have swag. It's the same thought process. Just because Donald Glover is a good actor doesn't mean, and has a white girlfriend, doesn't mean he can't have a message that means something about the black community. And hell, it doesn't even have to be about that. A lot of people were just thinking he was talking about gun violence in the video. Like, it's a perception thing. People gotta stop putting everyone in these small ass boxes, because eventually we're gonna turn into some rats and chew through that motherfucker.
Exactly.
Which is funny considering Tyrone's avatar is an animal that wouldn't chew through a box. So,
damn it,
it comes full circle.
I fell right into that. It's just, it's just like, but you bring up some really good points. It's just like, I can tell you basically just from my life. And this was happening around the time that we were reaching like past elementary school, we were starting to get into middle school, my love for things like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon basically just had to be hidden for like a good 3 to 4 years. And the reason that was because if I was caught like openly liking these things, I was subjected to being what, a child. I was you know, being a baby. I wouldn't grow up. It's just embarrassing to be seen like this. Oh, no girl's gonna be with you because you like Pokemon and stupid shit, right? So
Yeah.
generally, that crowd is the crowd you're exposed to, and that's kind of bad because that's during elementary school, middle school, high school, maybe in college. It gets a little bit more diverse in college, but during those levels of school, that's where society just sort of lays itself in front of you. These are the type of people you're surrounded by, who you grow up with. So when you're ostracized, when you're outcasted for liking these things, generally we as people always try to connect with the people that share the same interests as us. It's common nature. It doesn't matter what color you are at that point. If you share the same feelings for, say, Spider-Man that someone else does, you two are going to have discussions. You two are going to talk about stuff. People gravitate towards people that are interested in the same stuff. So when we're outcasted at an early age for liking simple stuff, we'll do one of two things. One, we'll put on a front to where we try to mask ourselves. No, I'm not this person that's interested in Dragon Ball Z. It's for nerds. It's for lames. Why would I do that? Or two, what we're going to do is retreat and find someone who is interested in that stuff, and that's the person that makes us feel, you know, comfortable, makes us feel like we belong. So if you're hit with years upon years of just being outcasted, being openly embarrassed by your peers over just what you generally think is interesting to be involved in, and then you turn around and you be with somebody, and then these same people who said this have the right to judge you, to sit there and judge you over your choices. You don't need to really affiliate with that group anyway, do you?
Yeah, but see, the difference was when we were kids, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have a place where we could hide. So we all put on fronts. We all faked like we were either ghetto or a little bit more in tune with what was going on. But if you were bad at it, it was really fucking obvious.
Or
like, for example, I was bad at it.
Right. Or what I'd have to do is I basically just left all my interests at home. While I was at school, I was basically no one because I couldn't put on any real identity. So, but at home, that was when I played my game. That's a lot of one of the reasons I see how a lot of nerds usually are confined to staying at home. They stay at home. They don't go out for parties. They don't do none of that. They stay home. They play computer games. They play video games specifically because that's the one place they know. Obviously, no one's going to judge them because no one's there. It's just them.
So that was part of the reason why I think I made a video a while back saying this is like the perfect time for a lot of like the nerds of today don't even know the struggle that existed when we were kids.
Right. We didn't have group like what we're doing right now. We didn't have group discussions like this because I can't just call you up. But okay, the radio probably existed, but it wasn't like common. It wasn't as common as like what we're doing right now.
And it wasn't as easy to find people.
Right. And you literally had to go to like a club or something specifically that caters to that, and you would have to find it. You would have to go through the effort. Now it's not like that. So yeah, and what you brought up at the very beginning of the video pretty much hit it home right there, is that why do we have nerds and black nerds? Why can't they just be called nerds? I don't get it.
Because and the funny thing is, I love how the term black nerd didn't even come from white people. It came from black people. Black people did that shit.
Right.
They sat there and said, oh, well, you're a black person who's really into like geeky shit. You're a black nerd. And that's like, it's like I said before, that's why I'll keep saying racism is not a one-way street. nor do I think it would have been any different if black people were swapping positions with white people in this country. We would have done the same shit. We would have been like, light is the sign of the devil, and we would have perpetuated that shit as much as, because people do that. People like to make themselves feel superior by putting down another person. And unfortunately, skin color is the easiest thing to use as a base of that superiority.
Because it's visible. It's visible and it's right there.
Yeah, it's like even when you look at like some of the groups nowadays, like the Black Lives Matter shit, it's not simple be proud of your skin color. It starts transcending into black is truth. Black is real. And I'm like, see, and I'm like, yep, we're going right down that same path the white people were going down, supposedly, right?
Right.
Well, they fucking sat there and made it seem like white was the best skin. It's not what you're supposed to fucking do. You're supposed to take pride in who you are, not be a dick and act like my shit is better than yours because we're different. The differences is what makes us unique. We should both be equal and equally be unique and beautiful. That's not what the fuck happens. It always turns into an argument of how I'm better because I'm unique in this way, and you're better because you're unique in this way.
We try too hard to get even instead of getting equal. Is that sort of hitting the ballpark what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. We were more concerned with getting back than trying to hit some level of equality, because that realistically, I don't think most people wanted that shit. Most people wanted to get even.
Right.
And unfortunately, as we've learned, as Naruto has taught us anything, violence begets more
Naruto.
violence.
I felt that Naruto, but you know what? The only reason I'm not giving you shit over is because it's absolutely true. Like, I felt the Naruto reference. Yes, the cycle of revenge is only going to turn into more revenge.
So by the end of it, well, a bunch of people will be dead for a cause that will never truly reach the proper conclusion, because you were fighting for the wrong thing in the first place.
And the reason I think this is one of the biggest cases too is because it's a lot harder to befriend someone than to separate them. To separate two people is easy. To befriend someone, it takes actual effort. It takes effort to talk with somebody. It takes effort to get to know them, get to know what their traits are, get to know how they act, get to know what their personality is. That takes real effort and it takes time. And people especially in the world that we live in, with the internet and how fast everything is, everything always goes so fast. We don't have time to do that. We have time to look at you, see that your color is this, and start putting labels on you immediately, because we got to move on to the next person.
Well, that, and because unfortunately we are also building a society of people who are more open-minded, but it's more of a sense of unneeded guilt. I don't like that shit. Like, people are like, oh, well, they get it. No, they just feel guilty about something they had no control over.
Right.
Like that's an unnecessary weight to put on another individual. How the fuck would you feel if you woke up in the morning and said that you need to apologize to this individual for something your great great grandma did 200 years ago, and you're sitting there like, fuck, and like you agree that what your great great grandma did was fucked up, but now it's like this weird sense of shame that's based on other people's actions. It's like it'd be like every German person apologizing to a Jewish individual, even if they never agree with the thought process of Hitler.
Right.
It's like, that's not equality. That's me. That's fake equality. It's me trying to bring you down and bringing you lower than me by making you feel bad for me, based off of something you had nothing to do with. Because those individuals didn't choose to grow up white or black. Shit just happened. That's how life works. That bugs me. I hate that shit.
And if anything, and maybe this will sound weird, this will sound controversial, but I believe that Donald Glover is in a relationship that actually shows progression as us as human beings, specifically because it shows that they view each other as even, on even terms. Nobody feels like they're better than anybody else. Nobody feels like they're superior. Nobody feels less. Nobody feels ashamed. Nobody feels like they are holding a grudge. They're both on even terms and an equal relationship with a child.
Well, that's true. I mean, but you could still make the argument that it could be for a fucked up reason, like how people fetishize being with a particular race based off of stereotypes.
Well, no, I'm not saying, like I said, and for all of you all listening, obviously, be with whoever makes you happy. I will not stress that enough. But it's also a thing of if life is not a one shot. Like, life isn't just this simple. You have to do things this way, otherwise you don't agree with this way. That's how over obsessive religions and races and corporations and communities feel, because it's easier to. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Because it's easier to think it's easier to get everybody to think in one mindset than to have a bunch of people who think completely different mindset, because all those mindsets are too hard to control. It's too hard for everybody to all think in different ways. We have to have we as people apparently feel like we have to have someone either think this way. It's either right or left. There's no other possible ways you can come at how you view the world. And that's where we run into a big problem. Is like we have to constantly stop viewing everything as an attack and start viewing our opportunities. What can we do to be better? Not what can we do to get back at what made or what we were viewed as bad in the first place, or what was viewed as bad in the first place.
We need to start making progression,
right?
And being concerned about getting even, because getting even is a regression.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole violence begets violence thing is based on the idea that, simply put, me trying to get back at you for something your ancestors did to me is an issue. It's the same concept that people were bringing up. It was weird. I was watching some older movies. I was watching Boys in the Hood earlier, and there's the gentrification scene where they talk about how white people moved in drugs and liquor stores into the neighborhood to get black people to kill each other. And the way you stop that is simple. Stop fucking killing each other. But see, people are more concerned about the day-to-day shit than worrying about the overall picture of, well, we're not accomplishing nothing. We're not moving forward. Because any dude who tries to get out of the hood, so to speak, is always stuck by some force of people wanting to shoot other motherfuckers, or just simply put, I don't care about progress. I just want to take you out for the fuck of it. Mm-hmm. We need to move forward. But I think at this point we're just kind of rambling in circles.
Pretty much. Yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and end right here. Basically, and with my closing statement is, for those who are like, well, why don't the other side, which there's going to be people who are going to say that, why don't the other side, aka the white people, the white man, why don't they do that first? We can't, and this is just me and Terrell talking, we can't change this video. You can watch this video and completely think the exact same way you want after this. We can't change the way people think. What we can do, however, is better ourselves, and hopefully everyone else will just follow suit. You can't change somebody from being racist. You can't change somebody from being violent. You can't change them for who they are if they choose to be that way. That's up to them. They have to make that choice. What we can do as people is better ourselves, and hopefully that inspires the next generation of people, or the generation that's currently happening, to make the conscious decision to want to do that. Because if we try to force somebody to do something, guess what they're not going to do? It. But, yeah, that's basically all I've got to say. Guys, obviously, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Terrell, as someone who is African American as well, and we do a lot of the Pokemon videos and Dragon Ball, just anime stuff, it was a pleasure having you on here to get our perspectives on the race issues that have been happening recently.
Thanks. The pleasure's all mine. I guess my quick final statement is this simply, but um, I understand that there's a lot of aggression and hatred and history that has been either wiped away or changed or modified, and a false narrative has been pushed to the general masses and people, and we don't want to stand for that. We want the truth to be set out, which I can completely understand. My thought process is this, and simply this: you can't ask for change if you don't leave the door open for it to happen.
Right.
A lot of people don't want things to change but refuse to leave the door open, saying that you're willing to forgive and move on or recognize and move on. It's always this weird, we need to change and move on, but I don't forgive you and I don't fucking trust you fuckers because of all this shit. Mm-hmm. It takes two people to hold each other's hands. You can't hold your own hand without it looking like some weird self-handshake, all right?
Right.
All I'm saying, look, I'm not concerned about... I'm not concerned with people... me personally, I'm not overly concerned about you innately just coming off of this video and being like, I forgive everyone. No. I just want... The main... It's like I've said before, the main thing I've always wished for the
future... That's what happened, though.
That'd be some next level shit. But my main wish is that people leave the doors open in their minds, because that to me is the biggest fucking thing. The biggest thing for progression in human beings in general is to leave that door open to even humor it. Because if you're not even going to humor the idea, then we've already lost. There ain't even no point having the conversation. If your mind isn't even open to have the conversation, there's no point. There is absolutely no point. So that's my thing. At least leave the door open to humor, to even at least have the conversation.
Right. But yeah, with that said, like I said, again, leave your comments in the comment section below. There'll be a link to Terrell's channel, not just his channel, his Twitter page and his Twitch page, in the description. And again, share this video with someone that you feel may have their eyes closed, and try to, hopefully, obviously you can't open someone's eyes, they have to do that, but, hopefully if this message gets around enough, then maybe people will start to realize, the world is a lot more complex than just, the world's literally not black and white.
Lol.
I know, yeah. But with that said, I'll see you all then, everybody. Tyrone the God 3, out.